If the rope holding you to the person you love was pulling you into the abyss, I mean, physically dragging you down into nothing, would you let go?
That is, well, it's the ultimate moral fulcrum, right?
Exactly. And more importantly, what kind of monster do you become when you finally reach the bottom?
Because when gravity and physics strip away every single illusion of civilization, what's left is rarely elegant.
Yeah, not at all.
And it is never, ever kind. It's just the core, brutal mechanics of survival.
Right. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are opening up the incredibly dense stack of notes, the production data, the psychological theories you sent over, the folder you ominously labeled case file number 003.
Yes, the Apex file.
Yeah, and we are conducting a complete multi-source psychological autopsy of that 2026 film. And I want to be very clear with you right out of the gate.
We are definitely not doing a cheerful, popcorn movie recap today.
Not even close.
Yeah.
You asked us to look at the mechanics beneath the narrative, so we are stripping this story down to its exposed nerves.
We really are. We're going to examine the hunter versus prey dynamic, the terrifying realities of psychotic survival mechanisms, and basically the absolute darkest corners of the human psyche.
To achieve that level of forensic analysis, we're pulling from every layer of the material you provided.
Right, so we'll be analyzing the subtitle transcripts to look at the exact clinical framing of the dialogue.
Because the dialogue hides so much.
It really does. And we'll dissect the behind-the-scenes production articles, plus the Wikipedia data, just to understand how the harsh environmental context was engineered to break these characters.
And perhaps most revealingly, we're going to tear in to those audience reviews from IMDb that you included.
Oh, the reviews are fascinating.
They are, because we need to contrast the public's very surface-level frustration with the deeper predatory insights that are actually operating beneath the surface of this film.
Because what the average viewer saw is just another survival thriller with some supposedly, well, they called them stupid character decisions.
Right, stupid decisions.
Yeah, what they saw as stupid, we recognize as a horrifyingly accurate depiction of a mind shattering under pressure.
Exactly. But to understand the shattering, we have to understand the baseline structure of the glass, right?
We have to start at the inciting incident.
Let's travel to Norway. The Troll Wall.
Yeah. And for context, the Troll Wall is not just a challenging climb. It is the tallest vertical rock face in Europe.
It's massive. Over 3,600 feet of sheer, unforgiving drop.
The environment is inherently hostile to human life. It's cold, the weather is wildly unpredictable, and the physical toll on the human body is just immense.
And this is where we're introduced to Sasha, played by Charlize Theron, and her partner Tommy, played by Eric Bana.
Right, and it's clinically imperative that we analyze the dynamic between them right here, suspended on this wall, before the tragedy even strikes.
Yeah, they're sitting at a portalage. And for anyone who isn't deep into extreme mountaineering, a portalage is essentially a highly engineered cot.
Like a fabric tent.
Exactly. A fabric tent that you physically bolt into the side of a sheer cliff. You are literally sleeping suspended over an abyss.
Just the concept of it induces a level of baseline anxiety for most people.
Oh, absolutely. But Tommy isn't just anxious. I'm looking at the subtitle transcripts here, and he is exhibiting clear, verbalized signs of deep psychological fatigue.
He tells her, I think the line is, I don't know how many more of these strips I've got left in me.
Yes, that's the one.
He's expressing a profound desire to retreat from the edge. He's recognizing the biological imperative to survive.
Which means stepping away from the relentless, high-stakes pursuit of adrenaline, right?
Exactly, because adrenaline is a stress hormone. Chronic exposure to it degrades the nervous system, and Tommy is feeling that degradation.
But Sasha's response is just complete dismissal.
Yeah, she views his caution not as a healthy survival instinct, but as a weakness.
Like an impediment to her compulsive need to conquer the environment.
Right. He even tries to use an object to ground the conversation. He brings up his lucky compass.
The compass is so important. He says there's an old saying, luck is like anything else you take up the mountain. Eventually it's going to run out.
And then he delivers this warning that just hangs in the freezing air. He says that's exactly why you have a climbing partner.
That someone can make the call when one of you loses the plot.
Yeah, I circled that phrase in your notes, loses the plot.
It's so telling. He isn't talking about physical endurance. He recognizes that her drive has crossed the line from, a passion for the sport into a highly dangerous compulsion.
She's chasing a high that requires constantly escalating risk.
And the tragic irony is that his warning about luck running out proves fatally prophetic almost immediately.
The weather turns. vast.
An avalanche,
Yeah.
just a sheer cascade of ice and kinetic energy strikes the wall.
We witness the physical manifestation of that lost luck. Tommy is knocked off the rock face.
The portal edge completely collapses.
And suddenly, Tommy is left dangling. He is dead weight on the climbing line, and his weight is actively dragging Sasha, the anchors, everything, toward the abyss.
The physical reality of that climbing rope in that exact moment is terrifying. I mean, it transforms instantly from a lifeline into a murder weapon.
The tension on that line is agonizing. You can almost hear the fibers stretching.
Groaning under the sheer kinetic load of a human body in free fall, being arrested by the harness.
And in order to survive, Sasha has to make the ultimate harrowing choice.
To live, she must sever the connection.
She has to reach down, unclip the carabiner, and intentionally drop the man she loves into the void.
The clinical reality of that moment just cannot be overstated. We are witnessing the exact microsecond a psyche fractures.
Absolutely, because cutting that rope is not just a mechanical action to relieve weight.
No, neurologically speaking, she is flooding her system with cortisol and adrenaline to override her emotional attachment.
The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, completely hijacks her prefrontal cortex.
So logic, love, future planning, it all vanishes.
Completely. Only the primal imperative to not fall remains.
But the cost of that primal override is immediate catastrophic trauma.
It's a highly concentrated, localized trauma that completely rewrites her reality.
Which is exactly what makes the film's time jump so jarring. We cut to 5 months later.
Right, we are no longer in the freezing vertical heights of Norway. We're in Australia.
Specifically, the sweltering horizontal expanse of the Wandara National Park.
And what we find is not a woman who has spent 5 months healing, going to therapy, or, processing her grief.
No, we find a woman who is actively, dangerously spiraling.
From a psychological standpoint, Sasha's behavior in Australia is a textbook presentation of severe survivor's guilt.
Guilt that has metastasized into a subconscious death wish.
Think about her actions clinically. She has completely retreated from polite society.
Why? Because human connection now equates, in her neural pathways, to catastrophic loss.
Exactly. To love someone is to eventually have to drop them.
So she seeks out an environment that will isolate her, but more importantly, an environment that will punish her.
She's embarking on this highly dangerous solo hiking trip into a vast, unforgiving wilderness.
She is substituting her overwhelming emotional agony with physical hardship. She wants the heat to blister her.
She wants the terrain to exhaust her. It is a form of profound self-flagellation.
Right, she's facing herself in the wild because she believes, on a fundamental level, that she deserves to be hurt.
She's operating entirely on a damaged, feral frequency.
And the most glaring symptom of this pathology, the most obvious tell that she is trapped in a trauma loop, is the physical object she keeps on her dashboard.
Tommy's compass.
I really want to dig into the symbolism of that compass because it's brilliant. It's sitting right there, ticking away as she drives into the outback.
It acts as a physical anchor to her traumatic past.
Every time she looks at it, her brain fires the exact same synaptic pathways that were active on the troll wall.
It's a constant, suffocating reminder of the life she let fall. She is deliberately keeping the wound open.
The compass is a navigational tool designed to help you find your way, that she is using it to ensure she remains completely emotionally lost.
Which actually reminds me of a terrifying medical concept.
Oh, psychological hypoxia.
Yes, hypoxia is when your brain is deprived of oxygen, leading to confusion, poor decision-making, and eventually death.
And isn't it deeply ironic that she is seeking out these massive, open-air, high-altitude environments for quote-unquote freedom?
But she is deliberately dragging this immense, suffocating psychological weight with her.
She is starving herself of emotional oxygen. She isn't climbing or hiking to live.
No, she is hiking to systematically destroy herself.
That is the core tragedy of her state when she arrives in the park.
She is seeking the absolute limits of human endurance, not to conquer the landscape, but to find an external force capable of matching the internal devastation she carries.
She wants to be broken.
Which sets up the most dangerous transition in the natural world.
How does a woman who is actively punishing herself, who is bleeding emotionally, become the perfect target for a predator looking for a very specific type of prey?
That feral frequency she's broadcasting, it doesn't just isolate her. It acts like a beacon.
And unfortunately for her, someone was watching.
We transition here from Sasha's internalized destruction to a horrific external manifestation of psychotic survival.
We're introduced to Ben, played by Taron Egerton.
And initially, the film plays with our cultural expectations perfectly.
Yeah, Ben presents as the archetypal, helpful local.
It's the classic trope. You're lost or in trouble in a rural area, and the rugged, charming local steps in to save the day.
Right. Sasha is at a rural gas station, and she's being aggressively harassed by a group of menacing, very stereotypical hunters.
They are overtly threatening, and Ben intervenes. He de-escalates the situation.
He's charming, he's knowledgeable about the area, and he seems completely benign.
He even directs her toward a secluded spot in the park, a well-kept secret away from the tourist trails.
But the clinical reality of Ben's psychology is horrifyingly deviant.
He is not a savior. He is an apex predator operating with complete impunity within his chosen hunting ground.
The aggressive hunters at the gas station were overt threats. Loud, clumsy, easily identifiable.
Ben is the covert threat. He's the snake in the grass.
And his survival mechanisms, the way he processes the world, are deeply and disturbingly ritualistic.
Disturbing is putting it mildly. I mean, the notes you provided detail some deeply unhinged physical modifications.
The guy has manually filed his teeth down to sharp points.
Yeah, and he is brewing a custom homemade salt brine in massive vats out in the middle of the Australian outback.
And then there's the jerky. Oh man, the jerky.
He invites Sasha to his camp, plays the gracious host, and offers her a snack, Geno's beef jerky.
And the audience, and eventually Sasha, learn the horrific truth. Geno is his mother.
And his mother was his very first victim.
This requires a severe clinical examination of Ben's deviance. We need to look closely at his cannibalistic motivations.
In modern forensic psychology, cannibalism is rarely about actual caloric sustenance.
Right. It's a psychotic survival mechanism centered around absolute control, dominance, and the total eradication of abandonment.
Exactly. By consuming the flesh of another human being, the offender is enacting the ultimate form of possession.
Wait, let me stop you there. Are we actually buying the philosophical framing he gives Sasha later?
The tribal mythology stuff?
Yeah. Because I'm looking at the subtitle file, and when he finally has her captive, he explicitly lays out this whole mythology. He says, there are native tribes that say to capture the spirit of your prey, you have to consume its liver.
Right.
He essentially tells her that by eating his victims, he absorbs them. He keeps them alive within his own biological framework.
Yes, that's his rationalization.
But to me, that just sounds like he's trying to put a civilized spiritual spin on the fact that he's a rabid killer. I mean, isn't he just dressing up psychopathy in the language of indigenous ritual to feel profound instead of pathetic?
Well, your skepticism is entirely valid, and it actually points to a common dynamic in psychopathy.
Really?
Yeah. Predators frequently construct elaborate, pseudo-spiritual mythologies to rationalize their compulsions.
Okay, so it's a cover-up.
The urges that drive Ben are fundamentally chaotic, violent, and deeply shameful on a subconscious level.
So the ritualization, the filing of the teeth, the specific brine, the tribal philosophies, it provides a framework of control over that chaos.
Exactly. He is attempting to elevate murder and cannibalism into a sacrament.
So whether he genuinely believes it or is just using it as a coping mechanism, the end result is the same. It's an attachment pathology taken to its most gruesome extreme.
Precisely. Think about the mother aspect, Geno. By killing and eating his mother, his first kill, he has ensured she can never, ever leave him.
He even vocalizes this twisted Oedipal mantra to Sasha. He says, Geno loves Benno, and Benno loves Geno.
By metabolizing her physical body, he believes he has achieved a permanent spiritual synthesis.
In his shattered mind, he has eliminated the concept of loss,
He can never be abandoned because the people he loves are quite literally a part of him.
which makes his selection of Sasha so incredibly chilling.
We have to examine why he chose her for this horrific ritual out of all the potential hikers in that massive park.
According to his own admission in the script, it wasn't random at all. He watched her handle those aggressive hunters at the campsite.
He tells her she had grit and poise.
Right. He recognized that she didn't back down, but she also didn't panic and escalate the situation unnecessarily.
He tells her, "You're special, Sasha. Just like my mom. I could sense it the moment we met."
He is completely projecting his mother's attributes onto Sasha.
He doesn't just want to kill a random stranger for the thrill of the hunt. He's looking for a specific psychological profile.
He wants to capture a spirit he deems worthy of integration.
He sees her strength, her suppressed rage, her trauma, and he recognizes a kindred spirit.
Which brings us to the collision of these two incredibly broken psychologies. We have the hunter, the prey, and a harrowing study in emotional detachment.
Let's talk about the hunt sequence itself, because the auditory choices the director makes here are fascinating.
Oh, they're brilliant. When Ben finally reveals his true nature and gives Sasha a head start to run into the bush, he blasts a song over his camp speakers.
He plays Go by the Chemical Brothers?
It's upbeat, it's an adrenaline-fueled dance track. It almost feels like a mocking soundtrack to a sporting event.
He is treating her fight for her life as a game. It highlights his complete detachment from her humanity. To him, this is recreation.
But then, the landscape shifts. Sasha is running, panicking, tearing through the dense brush, and she steps directly into a massive, rusted bear trap. He's hidden in the foliage.
The mechanical crack of the metal jaws snapping shut on her leg is just visceral.
And the moment that happens, the audio landscape shifts entirely. The Chemical Brothers fade out, and we hear a deeply disturbing industrial track.
Nasty Boy by the band Chaban.
The lyrics, I'm a little filthy, I'm a filthy little dog, perfectly encapsulate the descent from a supposed sporting hunt into sheer, degrading horror.
The transition in the music perfectly mirrors the transition in their physical dynamic.
What begins as a chase across open, expansive terrain quickly devolves into a forced, agonizing physical intimacy.
Sasha is trapped. And when Ben approaches to claim his prize, the dynamic shifts again.
Because Sasha is not a passive victim. Using her climbing gear in sheer desperation, she manages to break free.
And in the ensuing struggle, she violently shatters Ben's leg.
The tables turn, but not in a way that offers rescue.
Right. Because of the struggle, they both tumble down into the bottom of a steep, vertical ravine.
The geometry of the film suddenly shrinks. They are trapped in a rocky pit.
Sasha has a severely lacerated leg from the bear trap, and Ben has a compound fracture.
Neither of them has the physical capability to survive or escape the ravine without the other.
This necessitates the most visually and psychologically arresting image of the entire film.
In order to scale the vertical rock face and get out of the ravine, they must literally handcuff and tether themselves together for a final tandem climb.
I want to break down exactly why this relationship between Sasha and Ben at the bottom of that ravine is fundamentally toxic, yet terrifyingly symmetrical.
You have Sasha, who is drowning in an ocean of overwhelming grief seeking punishment.
And you have Ben, who operates purely on feral, predatory instincts, seeking control.
They have both retreated to the extreme wilderness to escape what Ben calls polite society.
I'm looking at Ben's dialogue from the transcript during this sequence. He tells her, "You completely lose the ability to function in polite society."
Yeah, and then he says, personally, I think your wiring's just messed up. You can fight your way through a lot of shit, but you can't beat your wiring.
He is speaking to her, but he is also speaking about himself. They recognize the fundamental fracture in each other's psyches.
It's a dark mirror. He looks at her trauma and doesn't see weakness. He sees a shared deviance from the norm.
He views her as a kindred spirit who simply hasn't embraced the final, lethal step of her isolation.
He thinks he's helping her evolve. And this shared deviance culminates during that agonizing tandem climb.
They are physically tethered by a rope, inching their way up a sheer cliff face.
The physical symmetry is haunting. The environment has forced Sasha back into the exact physical configuration of her deepest, most profound trauma.
She is once again on a vertical wall, tethered by a rope to a man whose weight threatens to pull her down into the abyss.
But this time, the psychological mechanics required for the outcome are completely different.
As they're climbing, Ben, despite his broken leg, realizes that Sasha is reaching down and loosening his harness.
Even in excruciating pain, his predatory instinct flares. He threatens to put her off the wall.
He threatens to take her down with him.
And in that moment, we have to look at Sasha's emotional detachment. She doesn't panic. Her breathing doesn't spike.
She calmly, methodically reaches down and unties the Prusik knot holding his weight.
And we really must explain the physical reality of that knot. A Prusik knot is a specific friction hitch used in climbing.
It is designed to grip the rope tightly when weight is applied. It's a life-saving mechanism.
Right. Untying a Prusik knot that is under the tension of a human body is not something you can do accidentally by brushing against it.
No, it requires deliberate, focused, sustained physical effort.
She has to work the rope. She has to look at him, look at the knot, and actively dismantle the thing keeping him alive.
And when she finally works it free, she watches him fall. She watches him hit the bottom of the ravine.
We must deeply contrast this act with the loss of Tommy on the troll wall.
Yes. Dropping Tommy was an agonizing forced trauma. It was an act of desperate split-second survival that fractured her soul.
She wept. She carried the guilt for months.
But dropping Ben, That is a deliberate, calculated, and ultimately liberating act of execution.
She severs the tether without a microsecond of hesitation.
She does not mourn the loss of the weight. She embraces the freedom it grants her.
She utilizes the exact physical mechanism of her deepest trauma to enact her survival.
But, I keep coming back to a critical forensic question regarding that victory.
Which is,
When she finally drops Ben, pulls herself over the lip of the ravine, and reaches the summit, did she truly defeat the monster, or did she just adapt to his rules?
oh man, think back to what Ben told her at the camp. Gotta be in the moment, or you may die. Perfection's the only option.
By mirroring his complete lack of mercy, by executing him with such cold, calculated detachment, did she absorb his predatory spirit without even having to take a bite of his twisted jerky?
It is a profound psychological conundrum, and it speaks to the core of survival theory. In order to survive an apex predator, one must adopt predatory behaviors.
The wilderness strips away the veneer of civilization and morality.
Sasha's survival is not a triumph of ethics. It is a triumph of biological adaptation. She out-predatored the predator.
Whether that leaves her healed or irreparably altered into something much darker is the unsettling ambiguity the film masterfully leaves unresolved.
And this intense psychological crucible couldn't have happened in a vacuum. The environment itself acted as the third silent participant in this toxic relationship.
The physical space literally squeezed the psychology out of them.
Which brings us to the production realities of the film. We have to talk about the landscape as an accomplice.
Pulling from the production articles and the Wikipedia data you gathered, director Baltazar Kormacourt shot this film on location in Sydney and the incredibly rugged Blue Mountains of New South Wales.
And Kormacourt is a director who fundamentally understands the antagonistic weight of nature.
He's from Iceland, and he's explicitly stated in interviews, "I'm from a country where the weather changes every 5 minutes. You're up against nature your whole life."
It becomes a big part of who we are, and I wanted to use the landscape in that way.
He did not want the environment to be a passive backdrop. He wanted it to be an active threat.
The commitment to capturing the harsh realities of the Australian outback is evident in every single frame.
The dense, oppressive eucalyptus forests, the raging whitewater rapids she has to navigate.
The sheer vertical drops of the sandstone ravines, the physical toll on the actors and the crew has been immense.
To achieve a seamless integration of danger without actually killing his cast, Kormacourt relied on extensive visual effects work.
The data you provided lists contributions from major VFX houses: Frame Store, ILM, Rising Sun Pictures, Union VFX, and Host VFX.
And what is crucial to understand about this specific type of visual effects work is that invisible VFX is often much harder to achieve than creating a fantasy spaceship.
Right, because our brains know exactly what water, rock, and gravity are supposed to look like.
If a digital double falls wrong, or if the water simulation in the rapids doesn't react correctly to the light, the illusion shatters immediately.
The VFX in Apex wasn't used to create a magical world. It was used to digitally extend the practical ravines.
To composite the actors into genuinely perilous whitewater situations.
And to heighten the true, unforgiving sense of peril. The visual fidelity of the rock faces is exactly what grounds the psychological terror.
The realism of the environment leads us directly to a fascinating spatial paradox that operates throughout the third act.
Does the vast, seemingly infinite expanse of the Australian outback actually amplify the feeling of claustrophobic danger?
I was thinking about this while reading your notes, and it hit me. It's like a terrifying concept I've read about in aerospace engineering.
The coffin in space scenario.
Yes. You could be floating out in the limitless, infinite expanse of the cosmos, the largest volume of space imaginable.
But if your spacesuit is failing, your entire universe shrinks down to the fog on your visor.
Your reality is only as large as the oxygen you have left.
That analogy translates perfectly to the Australian outback in this narrative.
The sheer, overwhelming scale of the wilderness isolates Sasha and Ben so completely from the rest of humanity that their immediate localized environment becomes hyper-compressed.
When they are in that ravine, the millions of acres of national park surrounding them cease to matter entirely.
The physical tether, that 3 feet of climbing rope tying them together on the rock face, becomes the entire universe.
The limitless horizon doesn't represent freedom to Sasha. It represents a complete lack of rescue.
It just means there are absolutely no witnesses to whatever Ben decides to do to her.
The landscape is entirely complicit in the terror because its vastness enforces the intimacy of the violence.
The isolation strips away any hope of external intervention. It forces a brutal internal reckoning.
The environment provides the theater, the scale, and the silence. but the violence enacted upon that stage is entirely intimate.
Now, while we are sitting here marveling at this masterful claustrophobic study of trauma, survival, and visual effects, the general public saw something entirely different.
And this disconnect in your notes is truly fascinating. Let's pivot to the public perception versus the clinical reality.
Let's look at the raw audience data you compiled. The film sits at a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes with a Metacritic score of 57.
That indicates highly mixed, decidedly average reviews.
If we examine the specific IMDb text files you included, a very clear pattern of audience frustration emerges.
While some users acknowledge and praise the stunning visuals and the respectful, gritty homage to 1970s thrillers like Deliverance,
a highly vocal portion of the audience dismisses the film entirely. They rate it a 5 out of 10.
they label it generic, predictable, and highly formulaic.
I'm reading one review here that specifically calls it Plot Hole City.
The user claims the narrative only functions because the characters are written extremely stupid.
They complain endlessly that Sasha makes too many mistakes. She has chances to kill Ben earlier and hesitates.
She runs the wrong way, she drops her gear.
They call it ultra poor writing because she doesn't efficiently neutralize the threat the moment she realizes what he is.
This is exactly where forensic analysis must step in to defend the narrative against surface-level critique.
We must contrast this public perception with the deeper realities of human behavior.
The core issue here is a massive failure of empathy and a misunderstanding of audience expectation versus clinical reality.
The average viewer sits down on a Friday night expecting to watch a standard Hollywood action hero.
They want a protagonist like John Wick or Jason Bourne, someone who makes tactically sound, emotionally detached, hyper-logical decisions under fire.
But Sasha is not a tactical operator. She is a civilian woman who is actively drowning in profound, untreated survivor's guilt.
The audience expects rational behavior in an irrational environment from a neurologically compromised subject.
The irrational decisions Sasha makes, her hesitation, her moments of complete paralysis, her poor spatial reasoning, are not plot holes.
No, they are clinically accurate symptoms of a mind severely compromised by trauma.
When the amygdala is flooded with fear, the brain's executive functioning shuts down. You do not think clearly, you react blindly.
And the audience calls the plot predictable because she keeps ending up in danger.
But what they're actually witnessing isn't bad screenwriting. It's psychological inevitability.
Traumatized people do not act logically. They repeat destructive patterns.
They gravitate toward the familiar dynamics of their trauma until a massive external force forces them to break that cycle.
Sasha's initial refusal to kill Ben, her inability to just finish him off when she has the upper hand, is a legitimate trauma response.
Taking a life, even in self-defense, requires a psychological threshold she is initially terrified to cross because of what happened to Tommy.
The viewers calling the narrative paper thin are simply frustrated that Sasha didn't act like a highly trained Navy SEAL.
They wanted a clean, logical, satisfying action movie.
But what Cormacour and the writers delivered was a messy, clinical case study of a mind shattering under extreme duress.
The film is a highly sophisticated portrayal of how trauma degrades decision-making.
And how primal, violent instincts must eventually override civilized conditioning when ultimate survival is on the line.
It's a fascinating divide. People want realism in their movies, right up until the realism makes them uncomfortable with how messy actual human survival looks.
And this massive disconnect between surface-level viewing and deep psychological truth is exactly why deep dives like this are so vital.
It's why we have to dig beneath the popular consensus to find the actual mechanics of a story.
It justifies the entire forensic approach. We must evaluate the evidence, not the expectations.
And speaking of digging deeper, this is actually the perfect time to drop a hint about a major evolution coming to the channel.
Oh yes, I have been so excited to announce this.
We are expanding the Bureau's forensic profiling. We're moving beyond just books and movies.
We are going to start diving into the incredibly complex psychological worlds of TV series. We're specifically targeting the looping timelines of Dark.
And we're also entering the realm of iconic animes.
Yes.
Yes, we are finally opening a case file on Death Note.
So we need you to join the Bureau officially. Make sure you like and subscribe so you have full clearance for those upcoming series and anime deep dives.
And while you're at it, drop your own clinical theory in the comments regarding Apex's ending, because we're about to give you our final verdict, and it is pretty dark.
Which brings us to the end of the notes in case file number 003. Let's summarize the descent we've tracked today.
We began at the freezing vertical heights of the Troll Wall in Norway, witnessing a tragic, kinetic loss that fundamentally fractured a human psyche.
We then followed that repressed trauma down into the sweltering, claustrophobic depths of an Australian ravine.
We analyzed the horrific, Oedipal cannibalistic rituals of a psychotic predator who sought to control abandonment through consumption.
And we dissected the brutal psychological metamorphosis Sasha had to undergo in order to survive him.
She was forced to shed her humanity, untie that Prusik knot, and outclimb the monster.
It's a narrative arc defined by a brutal, absolutely necessary regression into feral instinct.
But there is one final piece of evidence in your notes, one final scene that we need to address before we close this out, and it leaves us with an incredibly provocative thought.
The denouement. The final scene shows Sasha standing alone on a beach, finally safe, having survived the ordeal.
She reaches into her pocket, takes out Tommy's lucky compass.
The literal physical anchor of her trauma, the psychological hypoxia we discussed earlier.
And she throws it out into the ocean.
The surface level read, the standard audience consensus, is that throwing the compass away is a healthy sign of letting go.
It's closure. She is finally moving on from her grief.
However, if we apply the forensic lens we have utilized throughout this entire investigation, a much more chilling implication emerges from that simple action.
What if tossing the compass isn't a sign of healing at all?
Exactly. What if it's the exact opposite? Think about the environment she just escaped from.
Think about the rules of the predator she just learned from.
In the wild, apex predators and hunters do not just leave a site empty-handed, but they also frequently leave a piece of their kill behind.
They leave a marker of their territory, an offering, a symbol of their dominance.
We must ask the uncomfortable question. What if tossing that compass into the sea isn't Sasha moving on from Tommy, but Sasha making her first true ritual sacrifice to the wilderness?
What if, by adopting Ben's ruthless mechanics to survive, by calmly untying that knot and watching a man fall to his death without shedding a single tear, she absorbed his pathology?
What if this final act of throwing the compass away is her proving that Ben didn't just fail to kill her, he actually succeeded in creating his replacement?
A ritual offering from a newly minted apex predator. She has shed the victim, and she has embraced the dark.
It is a deeply unsettling hypothesis that forces a complete reevaluation of her psychological state at the film's conclusion.
If the rope holding you to the person you love was pulling you into the abyss, would you let go?
And what kind of monster do you become when you finally reach the bottom?
The clinical evidence we've reviewed today suggests that when you reach the bottom, you don't just survive the dark.
You learn to love it. Thank you for sharing these notes with us. This deep dive is now closed.